The Black Death. It remains one of the most terrifying chapters in human history, a dark period that has left an indelible mark on our collective memory. This devastating pandemic swept across Europe in the mid-14th century, altering the course of history in ways that are still felt today. It left behind a trail of unimaginable death and despair. Millions perished, their lives cut short by an invisible enemy. This horrific plague reshaped the very fabric of European society, bringing about profound changes in social structures and daily life. The Black Death, a catastrophic event, serves as a stark reminder of humanity's vulnerability to infectious diseases, a vulnerability that transcends time and place. The plague, primarily spread by fleas on rats, first appeared in Europe in 1347. It arrived with a ferocity that caught everyone off guard. It arrived on ships from the east, bringing with it a wave of death that would soon engulf the continent. The disease moved rapidly across the continent. It spared no one, regardless of age, status, or wealth. From bustling cities to remote villages, death became an inescapable reality. The plague did not discriminate. The Black Death's impact was profound, altering the course of history and leaving a legacy that would be felt for generations. It's estimated that between 1/3 and half of Europe's population died within a span of just a few years. The sheer numbers are staggering. The sheer scale of death is difficult to comprehend. Entire towns and villages were decimated, leaving behind ghostly remnants of once thriving communities. Imagine entire communities wiped out, their homes abandoned, their streets silent. Picture churches overflowing with the dead, their sanctuaries turned into makeshift morgues. The Black Death was a period of unprecedented suffering. The pain and loss experienced by those who lived through it are almost unimaginable. The world had never seen anything like it before. It was a catastrophe of unparalleled proportions. The plague's impact extended far beyond the immediate death toll. It changed the way people lived, worked, and thought. The Black Death shattered families, communities, and economies. The social fabric of Europe was torn apart. It left an indelible mark on art, literature, and religious beliefs. The themes of death and suffering became prevalent in the cultural expressions of the time. The Black Death's legacy continues to resonate centuries later. It is a somber reminder of the fragility of human life and the ever-present threat of disease. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of human existence, a lesson that remains relevant in our modern world. The Black Death is not just a historical event, it is a cautionary tale for all of humanity. The Black Death, a devastating plague, originated in Central Asia. This region, known for its vast steppes and diverse cultures, was the unsuspecting birthplace of one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. It spread westward through trade routes which were the lifelines of medieval commerce and communication. These routes connected distant lands, facilitating not just the exchange of goods, but also ideas, cultures, and unfortunately, diseases. The Silk Road, a network of trade routes connecting east to west, played a significant role in the plague's spread. This ancient trade network was bustling with activity as merchants and travelers moved silk, spices, and other valuable commodities across continents. This network facilitated the exchange of goods and culture, creating a rich tapestry of interconnected societies. However, the same routes that brought prosperity also became conduits for the deadly plague. Unfortunately, it also provided a pathway for disease. The movement of people and goods along these routes allowed the plague to travel vast distances, reaching new populations with devastating speed. The plague likely originated in the steppes of Central Asia, a region characterized by its harsh climate and nomadic tribes. These tribes, constantly on the move, may have played a role in the initial spread of the disease. It spread through rodent populations, particularly black rats, which were common in both rural and urban areas. These rodents thrived in the grain stores and homes of medieval settlements. Fleas living on these rodents carried the deadly bacteria Yersinia pestis. When the infected fleas bit humans, they transmitted the bacteria, leading to the onset of the plague. As trade caravans traversed the Silk Road, infected rodents and fleas hitched rides. These caravans, laden with goods, unknowingly transported the plague across vast distances. They unknowingly carried the plague towards Europe, setting the stage for a catastrophic outbreak that would change the course of history. The bustling port city of Kaffa in Crimea became a pivotal point in the plague's journey. This strategic location on the Black Sea was a melting pot of cultures and a hub of international trade. It was a key trading hub where merchants from different parts of the world converged to exchange goods. The city's vibrant markets and busy docks were a testament to its economic importance. In 1347, Mongol armies besieging Kaffa catapulted plague-infected corpses over the city walls. This gruesome act of biological warfare is one of the earliest recorded instances of using disease as a weapon. This biological warfare tactic is believed to have introduced the plague into the city. The terrified inhabitants of Kaffa, faced with the deadly outbreak, had no choice but to flee. From Kaffa, infected rats boarded merchant ships. These ships, carrying grain and other goods, became floating vessels of death as they sailed across the Mediterranean. These ships, unaware of the silent danger they carried, sailed to various ports in the Mediterranean. Each port they reached became a new epicenter for the spread of the plague. The plague spread rapidly throughout Europe, moving from port cities to inland towns and villages. The speed and scale of the outbreak overwhelmed medieval society. Its arrival marked the beginning of a dreadful chapter in European history. The Black Death would go on to claim millions of lives, leaving a lasting impact on the continent's social, economic, and cultural fabric. The Black Death manifested in three terrifying forms: bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic. Each of these forms brought its own unique horrors and challenges, making the pandemic one of the most feared in human history. Each form presented with its own set of gruesome symptoms, which were often so severe that they left an indelible mark on the collective memory of those who lived through the era. All carried a terrifyingly high mortality rate, with some forms being more deadly than others, but none offering much hope for survival once symptoms began to show. Bubonic plague, the most common form, was characterized by painful swollen lymph nodes called buboes. These buboes were a telltale sign of the disease and often the first indication that someone had been infected. These buboes, often appearing in the groin, armpits, or neck, were filled with pus. The sight of these swollen, pus-filled nodes was enough to strike fear into the hearts of those who saw them. Other symptoms included fever, chills, headache, and fatigue. These symptoms would often progress rapidly, leaving the afflicted bedridden and in severe pain. While bubonic plague was horrific, it was the least deadly of the three forms. Despite this, it still claimed countless lives and left communities devastated. Septicemic plague occurred when the bacteria entered the bloodstream. This form of the plague was particularly insidious because it could spread quickly throughout the body. This form was swift and deadly, often killing its victims before they even had a chance to seek help. The rapid progression of the disease made it one of the most feared forms of the plague. It caused fever, chills, and abdominal pain. These symptoms were often accompanied by severe gastrointestinal distress, making the disease even more unbearable. The most terrifying symptom was the blackening and death of tissues. This necrosis was a clear sign that the body was succumbing to the infection, and it often led to a swift and painful death. This gave the plague its grim moniker, the Black Death. The sight of blackened, dying flesh was a stark reminder of the disease's deadly power. Pneumonic plague, the deadliest form, affected the lungs. This form of the plague was particularly dangerous because it could be spread through the air. Highly contagious, it spread through coughing and sneezing. This made it incredibly difficult to contain, as even a single infected person could quickly spread the disease to many others. Symptoms included fever, cough, chest pain, and difficulty breathing. These respiratory symptoms often progressed rapidly, leading to severe respiratory distress and ultimately death. Pneumonic plague was often fatal within a day or two of symptom onset. The speed at which the disease progressed left little time for treatment or intervention, making it one of the most feared forms of the plague. The Black Death's high mortality rate was terrifying. Entire communities could be wiped out in a matter of days, leaving behind a trail of death and despair. Medieval medicine had no effective treatments for the plague. Doctors and healers were often at a loss, resorting to ineffective and sometimes harmful remedies in a desperate attempt to save lives. The lack of understanding of the disease's transmission only exacerbated its spread. Without knowledge of how the plague was transmitted, efforts to contain it were largely ineffective. The Black Death, in all its forms, left a trail of devastation in its wake. The social, economic, and cultural impacts of the pandemic were profound, reshaping the course of history in ways that are still felt today. The Black Death's impact extended far beyond the immediate devastation of disease. The massive death toll led to profound social and economic upheaval. Labor shortages became a significant issue across Europe. The death of so many workers led to a decline in agricultural production. Fields lay fallow, harvests dwindled. The scarcity of labor had a profound impact on the medieval economic system. Feudalism, a system reliant on peasants working the land for their lords, began to crumble. With fewer workers available, their labor became more valuable. Peasants gained bargaining power. They demanded higher wages and better working conditions. The Black Death also spurred technological innovation. The shortage of labor created a demand for new tools and techniques to improve efficiency. New agricultural implements, such as the heavy plow, were developed. These innovations helped compensate for the reduced workforce. They also laid the foundation for future agricultural advancements. The Black Death's economic and social consequences were far-reaching. They challenged the existing social order. They paved the way for new economic realities. The plague, while tragic, ultimately contributed to the decline of feudalism. It fostered a climate of change and innovation.